Hi, everybody. It's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to get us started. I know that there is a delay in the microphone, and I apologize. But this town hall is being recorded, so we have the mics being recorded. At the end, we'll have question answer, and I'm going to hand you the mic to make sure that your question is recorded along with the answer. So, welcome to today's town hall. Thank you for joining us. I see a lot of familiar faces, along with some new faces, which is very exciting, so thank you. So the purpose of today's town hall is about clarity, connection, and to have a conversation about what's going on in our city. We'll run through the projects currently being managed by the city of Northport and its partners. Thank you, FDOT, for being here. We'll share how the city actively manages projects and partnerships. We'll help to understand what to expect when these projects are happening. And to create a safe space for you to ask questions, to share your concerns, and your feedback. So a little bit about our agenda. We'll do Northport at a glance. We'll talk about transportation and connectivity, public safety investments, emergency preparedness and resiliency, supporting our growth through infrastructure, and at the end we'll do questions. On the back table, there are notebooks and pens. So since questions are at the end, if you want to grab a notebook, then you can write your question down, and then when the time question and answer comes, you'll have your question ready. Our presenters today, my name is Jane Eakins. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the City of Northport and your concierge. We have Ms. Tricia Wisner, Assistant City Manager at the end, Public Works Director Chuck Speak, Lamar Garlington, the Assistant Director of Public Works, Justin Abraham from Florida Department of Transportation, Stacy Alosio, our Emergency Manager, Fire Chief Titus, and Mike Willow, the Acting Utilities Director. I'm sorry again about the delay. Trish, we call you?
Thank you so much, Jane. And thank you to everybody for being here today. It's a great turnout now. We really appreciate your participation in these events. Can you hear both of me? Okay. I'll try to talk louder. Is that better?
Yeah, but can you talk slower so that the echo doesn't?
I will also talk slower. And that is completely against my nature. So if I speed up again, just remind me. Absolutely. We're going to try the wired mic too to see if it delays. Give me 1 second. Is this any better? No, it is not, unfortunately. No, this is the system here as part of this whole event. We're talking about managing it, so I appreciate your patience. All right. So Northport has grown tremendously over the last 2 decades. No one here is surprised about that. And truly we shouldn't be surprised. This was a platted community from General Development Corporation. And back in the 1960s, they anticipated that Northport, Charlotte, would have about 280,000 residents, if not more. So we're at 100,000 residents around. And that has been a big growth for us. That change in population creates demand on our infrastructure, including water and wastewater services, transportation, police services, fire services, and really all aspects of how we deliver services, programs, and infrastructure to our residents. So, how do we determine how to address the needs that come from that growth? We develop a capital improvement project plan. Our CIP plan has hundreds and hundreds of projects on there that we have to consider how to fund, how to prioritize, and how to deliver that for our services and infrastructure to reach our residents. There's a long-term planning process is in place. The city has a 5-year CIP that really drives the annual budget. We have a 10-year CIP that helps us plan forward. And we even have a 20-year CIP that really gives us those long-term goals. The community is always invited to evaluate this CIP. It is posted online. We have multiple meetings throughout the year as well to discuss these. When we're looking at the competing priorities within our CIP and the funding constraints that we see as a city, we start first with our strategic plan. Now these 7 pillars represent the key components of our strategic plan. The strategic plan is discussed throughout the year, but the commission really looks at it in November, makes some tweaks to it, sets some goals and guidelines with each in one of those pillars. And that helps us prioritize our work for the upcoming year. So we have everything on here from good governance, infrastructure, economic development, and you'll see these strategic plans used as part of our budget documents to help align the funding with our goals. So the strategic plan is just the beginning of how we evaluate the capital improvement projects and when they will be prioritized over other capital improvement projects. And one of our strongest resources is hearing from the community. We have meet-and-greet opportunities. We invite the public to the ordinance center. We ask, how would you spend $100? Help us allocate the funds. Look at these capital improvement projects. Let us know what your needs are. There's surveys online, and we have many planning meetings. We also have an evaluation of our service requests. So as calls come into the city and we develop work orders, we track how many work orders we have to start to see where our needs are. A large part of how we provide services to the city is personnel. The city's budget is predominantly personnel driven. So we are always looking to see how our personnel numbers align compared to comparable communities. In this slide, you see that North Fork has 10.4 employees per 1,000 residents. Now think about your interaction with the city, whether it's calling for solid waste pickup, a lifeguard at the aquatic center or Rosemary Springs, the use of our services for fire or police. Personnel is very important to making sure that we're providing the services that we hear our residents need. So we're tracking those annually to make sure we're in line. But we don't just track personnel. We're also tracking to see how we're delivering services. We have a transparency page, the link is on this slide, where you can see all the measures that we're tracking to determine if our level of service is meeting the needs of our residents. Are we using our tax funds the way that you asked us to based on service requests, work orders, communications, surveys to meet those needs? On the left, you see work orders that we received for drainage services. And you can see with the light blue line, that's the ones that we received, the dark blue line, the ones that we've been able to address those out. So we can see that those lines are trending pretty close together, which means we're pretty much on point with those drainage requests. Now we don't only put out ones that show that we're meeting the need. The one on the right shows that we are not meeting our goal timeline for how we process applications for building. This lets us know that we need to dig deeper. Is there some efficiency, technology that we utilized to meet that? Do we have staffing changes? Did we have our large increase in building applications? That throws things off. But analyzing how we provide our services and results from our work are key to helping make sure that we know where funding should be spent and where adjustments need to be made. Another conversation that you thought a lot about with our North Court overview is our space. When North Court was planted many years ago in the 60s, it was only 8% commercial and the rest was residential. That's very off base compared to normal communities. That means that all these infrastructure projects that we're going to hear about need to be funded from the resident. Through the 2024 ULCC rezoning process, we were able to look at some areas in the city that are relatively undeveloped, that's the activity center 6 and 10, and identify opportunities for additional commercial properties. What does this do for the city? By being able to bring in additional commercial, we help to diversify the tax base. We bring in funding from other commercial developments that will help us with these types of capital improvement projects. But we also develop good paying jobs for our residents so that we don't have to drive to Sarasota or further for a well-known job. We can stay within our community. The next project on transportation and connectivity, I'm going to introduce public works director Trustee.
Good evening, everyone. I am mindful that Lamar, the assistant director, and read the slides. I'll be here to answer questions from the commission.
Hello, everyone. Lamar Hamilton, Public Works Assistant Director. Okay, let's start off with our price widening project. Just a quick update for you guys. We continually doing the utility work across the corridor. Also, construction is progressing west to east. The project remains financially on track despite unforeseen underground conditions. A couple of things I would like to highlight for you guys tonight is progress. We're on about 40% completion. We're on budget, and we're approximately behind 4 months. As of now, we're predicting to be done around 2028.
We can't understand what you're saying here.
It's easier without the mic. You can just speak without the microphone. I can't listen to two at once.
All right. How about now? Let's do this slide again. I want to make sure you guys understand me. If you have trouble hearing me, just let me know, please.
That's better.
All right, price widening project update. A couple of things I would like to highlight tonight is the progress. We're probably 40% completion. We're on budget, and we're about 4 months behind. And currently, the estimated completion date is spring of 2028. So what we're working on now, we're installing water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure, paving roadways sections west of Southford Boulevard, installing roadway lighting, construction stormwater ponds, and completing major work across, major waterway crossing. Pretty long that just highlighted here is the Blue Ridge Waterway. The first culvert has been completed. The Makati Waterways crossing is near completion. We're doing some work restoration on the way. And then Lagoon Waterway crossing is coming next. Using temporary traffic shift to keep vehicles moving. Okay, schedule and budget. On the schedule, we substantially completed now, as recent I mentioned, we're around spring of 28 as completion date, approximately 4 months behind. The reason for delay is unforeseen underground utility conflicts, weather-related construction delays, and budget again. Our original construction budget is around 79.3, $80 million roughly. We had approximately about 345,000 change orders, which is less than 0.5% of the project. Some key takeaways: despite the schedule impacts, the project remains on budget, with most additional costs resulting from unexpected underground utility conditions. All right, guys, it's good? Okay, what's next? Looking ahead. Continuing underground utility installation and stormwater infrastructure, additional roadway paving, lagoon waterway crossing, additional drainage improvements, and roadway lighting and final roadway construction. Our commitment to you guys. Safety is number one. We also like to maintain construction quality, minimize impact to motorists, recover schedule where possible, and keep the project on budget. And provide regular public updates and be as transparent as possible. I think that's the last of my slide. I will pass it.
I will not try to use the mic for you guys. Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Abraham. I work with the Florida Department of Transportation. I am the construction project manager for the Sumter and Toledo interchange projects. And I'm sure most of you drive through it and you see it all the time, and you have to live through it. So my apologies for the short amount of construction that's been happening during that process. This project for both interchanges, what we're doing is we're signalizing the ramp terminals at both of the interchanges. Specifically speaking to the improvements, we are installing signals at both the ramp connections. We have controlled pedestrian crosswalks. We're adding intersection lighting improvements, adding northbound free flow on-ramp from the southbound sections, whether that's Toledo or Sumter. And then the one thing that makes it unique for Toledo versus Sumter, which are essentially mirroring each other as far as the work happens, the one difference for Toledo is the fact that there is going to be 2 lanes that go through the interchange, versus on Sumter, you're going to have a single lane going through the interchange. We are introducing dual left turn lanes to go on the northbound I-75 on-ramp. So that is a heavy movement in the mornings. We know that, right? We see the queuing that happens. And so this should help control a lot of that queuing and have a lot more of the traffic and a lot more vehicles be able to flow through and onto that northbound movement. So here is, I know it's really hard, you're gonna have to squint, but you're gonna be able to see a rendering of the typical section or the plan view of the Sumter Boulevard roll plot. And what you'll see is kind of the improvements I had mentioned. You're seeing signals on both ends of the intersection there, and then also some minor ramp improvements and widening down the northbound leg. And then that additional left turn, second Q lane to head northbound as well. And you're going to see that also on Toledo Blade. Toledo Blade, like I said, the only difference with this one and Sumter is the fact that you're going to see a second through lane going through the interchange itself. So as far as the schedule and cost, I'm going to take a second on this one. So right now we are working through the widening that began at Sumter and Toledo and the ramps itself, which includes the drainage work and the signal work and the lighting work. I'm sure you've driven by the project recently, you've seen the signals actually installed, and we're working with providing protection against the piers underneath the bridge, and so you're seeing that being constructed at the moment. Our plan is to have the overall project completed. We are on track to either complete it by the end of this year, hopefully, weather permitting, but at the latest, it looks like spring of next year. And construction cost at this moment is a little over $13 million. I kind of want to highlight the effort that the city and the staff has really helped along that path. For many years, we have coordinated these projects, and it has been a conversation for many years of how to bring this to fruition. And the main thing that really stuck in the way was the funding gap that happened. And we, for whatever reason, could not be able to accumulate enough funds to fund the entirety of the project. Well, the city did an amazing work in working with elected officials and procuring federal earmark funds or federal appropriated funds to be able to cover that gap. And because of that effort, we were able to also add state funds and meet in the middle and be able to fund it entirely for both intersections. So it's a tremendous effort. Thank you so much for the city in that coordination. As far as what you're going to be able to see during the project, for the I-75 ramps, we do have planned lane closures and full ramp closures. The times you'll see in the screen behind me. For single lane closures or partial closures, you're going to see it from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. If we have to do a full ramp closure, you're going to see it from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. And then any single lane closures is going to be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on both Sumter and Toledo, as well as 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And if we do have to do a double lane, it'll be from 8 to 6. Now I will say, we try our best. We try our best to give our notification to the public and to the city for anybody who's interested at least 2 weeks in advance. And I'm sure if you've driven by recently, you've seen variable message boards implicating that we do have ramp closures coming ahead, right? And so we're anticipating ramp closures for Sumter and Toledo as well within the next couple of weeks. The best way to kind of get our information as far as what happens on the project and any changes would be to the best way to sign up for the alerts would be on our website. We do have a QR code that we post as the last slide here that you can take your phone out and take a picture of it and sign up for those alerts. On the website itself, which again we'll have on the last slide, it's swflroads.com/projects/the project number. On that website, you'll be able to obtain all the project documents that we have posted there, and then sign up for any alerts that's necessary that you want to receive in anticipation for any changes that may happen on the project. So right now, like I said, there's also another notification that goes out from our district, which covers 12 counties. And so if you're a resident that travels up north to Sarasota or down south to Fort Myers, and you travel through another project, another DOT project, maybe along I-75, you can sign up for our Road Watch updates, which covers multitude of projects that happen within our district, and you can be up to date on any of the project updates that happen on those as well. So on this one, I want to cover that right now, crews will be working on excavation and groundwork and light pole bases for both Sumter and Toledo, essentially. And like I said, you'll see that they're working with building up the wall to protect the piers underneath the bridges currently as well. And here are some recent construction photos that's happening. I know they're kind of hard to see, but these slides will be posted for your availability and for your viewing pleasure later. So this one is Sumter Boulevard, and then this next one is here is Toledo Blade Boulevard. One of the things I do want to highlight is if you look on the top right corner, you'll see a picture of Toledo Blade, essentially your off-bound ramp from I-75 waiting at the interchange. This is one of the most frustrating movements, right, I can tell, along both of these interchanges, where you're waiting to take that left, and it seems like you're waiting on minutes on end, and it takes forever. And what you're seeing is people who, and I'm not saying anybody here, of course, they would never take the right and do a U-turn to come back. I mean, none of you guys look like safe drivers. But I know that there may be some drivers outside of this room that may take that movement, and in doing so, you actually add to the capacity of that through movement, and those people who are waiting to take that left wait a little bit longer. So the benefit in actually signalizing this is the fact that you are giving protected movements for everyone through the interchange, which is great, which will increase the safety for both of these interchanges. Also, because it's signalized, it will be working synchronized with the other interchanges as well. So with the adjacent interchanges, it will be working in conjunction with one another so that you're working through, you're not queuing up miles on end. It will work through to be able to get you through. So here's that information I promised. Here's the QR code. If you want to take your phones out and take a picture of it, you can. This gives you the ability to sign up for those construction alerts, any changes that happen on that project. It will give you those updates. That is also the website specific to the project where you're able to procure and get any of the project details that you need for our project. As well as, I know after this we have an opening for questions and answers as well. But if you're anything like me and you have additional questions that come up after the meeting and after you leave, it gives you an opportunity to submit those questions on that website. And we see those immediately, and so we'll be able to respond to it as quick as possible as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Can you bring that back, please?
Yes, absolutely.
While you're doing that, does this work? I think it sounds pretty good. Just real quick, since there is a QR code, the Wi-Fi code is educate, capital E, if you're having trouble connecting to the Wi-Fi with your code.
I just got it.
Okay, did everybody get? I still see a few cameras. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. So I'm Stacy Losio, I'm the emergency manager for the city. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about emergency preparedness and resiliency and how this emergency operations center is really going to help us with emergency response and recovery. So a lot of people don't really know what happens in an emergency operations center. Emergency management tends to work behind the scenes. Fire rescue, utilities, public works, they're out in the field. Everybody sees them, making sure that you're being rescued from your house or the 911 calls are going through. You have running water, the roads are clear. And we're in the emergency operations center, making sure they have the resources to be able to do those things. So if we have backlog 911 calls and Fire Chief Titus says we need more ambulances, he might ask the Emergency Operations Center to ask Sarasota County to ask the state to send more ambulances down to help you guys out. So that's why this Emergency Operations Center is extremely important. We currently work out of City Hall. It doesn't have a lot of technology. It doesn't have the redundancies that are needed to make sure we have continuity of operations during a major disaster like a hurricane. So this Emergency Operations Center we're building, it's 16,000 square feet. This includes a backup generator, space for a redundant generator hookup. We'll have backup water supply, backup communications. We're going to have our call center located in there, so you'll be able to reach us for emergency information through that call center. So it's going to be a really great facility to allow us to coordinate with all the departments to be able to get resources to you in the community. It's also going to allow us to collect information from the field. So as you guys call in our call center, you can provide us with information. There's a power line down in my road, can somebody come take care of that? And we can document that and communicate with the proper channels to make sure that that gets taken care of, and we can mark that on our maps. We'll have fire rescue call in and let us know where they've done first push and what roads are clear. We'll document that so we can let you know. And all of that helps us understand where resources are needed, what resources were most impacted, and what neighborhoods are most impacted so that we can send our resources out to where they're needed the most. So our points of distribution where we hand out food and water to the community, we can strategically place those things in the neighborhoods that really need it, and not the ones where the Publix is already open because they weren't impacted that much. So these are just some small things that really make a big impact for you guys for disaster response and recovery so we can better serve our community. Our main goal is to get everything back to normal as quickly as possible, get schools back open, get businesses back open, so we can all get back to work, get the economy moving again, and we can start recovering. We're going to be able to support 24/7 operations out of this facility. There'll be places to sleep. We'll have a kitchen to provide food for responders. So it'll allow us to be
With 24 operations, we have an A shift and a B shift. A shift will work days, B shift will work nights. So we'll have a place for somebody to sleep during the day so that they can work at night, vice versa. Right now in City Hall, we sleep on the floors in our offices. So this will be a nice upgrade to have some bunk space like the fire stations have when they do their 24-hour, because they're constantly doing 24 operations out of there. So we designed it based off of that. And then additionally, we'll have our Joint Information Center, which is really important for you guys. That's our communications department. And with the Joint Information Center, they are collecting all of the information that we get in the Emergency Operations Center and getting that information out to you so you know what's happening. What roads are closed, what roads are open, where there's flooding, what areas to avoid, but also what resources are available. When is that Disaster Recovery Center opening? Where are those points of distribution located? So they're going to be pushing that out on our websites, on our social media pages, on radio channels, however we get that information out to you after disaster. That's what happens in that Joint Information Center. And it's really important that that is located in the Emergency Operations Center. So as we get new information, we can feed it to them, and then they can then get it out to you guys as quickly as possible. So this is really going to improve our situational awareness. And what that just means is that we will have a better understanding of what is happening in all 104 square miles of the city. Information changes really, really quickly. You get information, and sometimes in a disaster, it's already old by the time you get it. So being able to get as much information as quickly as possible is really going to be very beneficial for us. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be able to prioritize our equipment, where our resources are going, where our personnel is going, a lot easier. Making sure that really those hard-hit areas get the resources that they need first. Strengthening our ability to maintain communications. We all know, especially if you were here, how many people were here for Hurricane Ian? I just want to see some hands. How many people had cell service after Hurricane Ian? Yeah. So I know that the telecommunications providers have done a lot of mitigation for that, so hopefully that will help us next storm. But this Emergency Operations Center will have redundant communications, including Starlink capabilities, so we should be able to get information out and at least communicate through our radio channels. So if you have radios, you'll be able to tune in. Plug if you don't have a NOAA radio, that's a great way to get the information. And then support faster, more coordinated disaster response and recovery for residents, which is really the main goal of emergency management. We're here to help you all on your worst days after disaster, making sure you have the resources you need to get back on your feet, fix your homes, get back to work, get your children back to school as quickly as possible. It's a very stressful situation for everybody, and there are a lot of resources available to communities after a storm, and our job is to make sure that that's organized and gets to where it needs to go. And this Emergency Operations Center is going to be very beneficial for that. And that is all that I have for you. I'll gladly pass the mic over to Fire Chief.
Thank you, Stacy. Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Fitz. I have the honor of being Fire Chief and representing the fine men and women that do the job on the street. So they make my job pretty easy. They do a fantastic job. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our capital projects that have just been completed or are currently ongoing, and then some of the future projects. And this starts a little bit differently to show you how some of the funding works, and when we don't have funding, how we still put it out there as a project, so that we know that we need to work collaboratively to secure funds in the future, whether that be through developer agreements, as we bring in impact fees in areas of the city, we begin to dedicate those towards those projects. So if we don't have them now, then we know we need to be looking for that funding in the future. So, the first project is Fire Station 81. This is the main station in City Hall complex. Fire Station 81 initially was slated as a remodel. There was some issues with the station and things like that. We were working through that, had design completed, and then a hurricane came. So we incurred pretty significant damage, and when we went and looked at it, it made a whole lot more sense to rebuild the station than it was to try and fix it and add to it. It would have been very inefficient, would not have been cost effective, became cost prohibitive. So that project is ongoing right now. It is on time, it is on budget, And we are looking at completion late this year, probably December. We're hoping they're a little bit ahead of time, but we're leaving some rain dates in there. I think on paper it says December sometime just before Christmas. So we're hoping maybe we're going to be a month earlier than that. So time will tell, depending on how many rain delays or other things that we get. And you'll see if you look at the funding sources that to comprise this project, the general fund, fire district, fire impact fees, surtax. R&R is replacement and renewal fund. Those are funds that we put aside for capital projects for ongoing things. That's fire truck replacement, ambulance replacement, capital equipment, things like that. And so we have an R&R general fund and R&R fire fund. We're comprised of two separate things. So the services that we have, we split those funds. So that's Fire Station 81. That station will house our current personnel, and it's also, that's our main fire administration station, so it has offices for fire administration. Currently, City Hall has been gracious enough to let us move in and cramp them for a little while, so we're operating out of City Hall. My staff is on 3 different floors, and so we feel that strain a little bit in communication, but it's working. We're very, very thankful that we didn't have to spend additional funds to find some place to rent. And we know that we have displaced and inconvenienced some of our partners, and so we really appreciate the cooperation and their assistance in getting it done. Next station is Fire Station 87. Fire Station 87, we just completed the uncoupling last week. Actually, we were in the station operating out of it in July. That is the second fire station in the Welland Park portion of the city. That station was built through a cooperative agreement. So when Welland Park began to develop, it was going to develop at such a speed that there was no way we were going to be able to secure funding in time to provide the services that were going to be necessary as they were needed. So we did a developer.
Next slide.
Oh. In initial talks, when they began talking about developing that, we had discussions and we were able to work through an annexation agreement and an agreement with the developer where it was determined they were going to go ahead and provide that funding up front. They were going to build that first fire station. They built Fire Station 86 on Prado, and that provided not only the station but the initial apparatus and equipment that were needed to start that station and start operations out of that station. We have continued that model. They've been very helpful in doing this with Fire Station 87, which is also on Prado Boulevard, but further down the road. If you haven't driven out to Welland Park and driven to far down those roads, it will take you, it will shock you really how much development there is in that area. It's quite impressive. And the makeup of the roads and the communities, we take all those things into consideration as we look at where those stations should be positioned. So again, the developer, they provide those funds up front, and then as we collect impact fees as that area is growing, those impact fees come into the city, they go into an account, and then they get distributed back to the developer. So the developer does get paid back for those things, but it's kind of a 0% loan for the period of time. And more than likely, it will cost more to provide fire protection for the stuff up there than what the impact fees will provide. That remaining balance is something that it's really kind of their proportionate fair share in making sure that they can maintain. So they've been a really, really good partner going through that. It was a really good opportunity, and it's a great example of working together with the developer to be able to accomplish the needs that are needed to provide service in that community when we didn't have the funding, and they really stepped up to the plate and helped us. We're working on a third fire station in that location as new property comes in there, and there's further development in the future, so there'll be announcements in the future as that goes, but right now we're covering that with 2 fire stations. That station going into place, really when we did the study and looked at everything, we kind of hit right on the mark. We were just getting to the point where our response times to some of those back areas were beginning to be stretched towards what we didn't, to go beyond what we considered to be acceptable. And so the station opened up and we kept everything right in line. So the timing was perfect, everything worked out really well. The funding that you see on the page there just gives you an example of what the costs were for those pieces of equipment and the fire station. Fire station dollar amount, if you look at that in comparison to Fire Station 81, you go, oh my gosh, that's a big difference. There's a couple reasons for that. So one, the developer obviously can do things a lot less expensively than we can. So some of the costs that aren't shown in there are development of the property, moving dirt, doing some of those things that they can go ahead and do without showing it as a project cost. And then they're also with West Village's Independent District, some of those supplies they were able to buy for that station, they actually purchased those. They're able to get those tax-free, so they're saving there as well. And going back, I would say since they started initial and did bidding on that station and everything like that, costs have gone up pretty dramatically since then. The other significant difference between Fire Station 87, the project cost that you see there, and what you just saw with Station 81 is Station 81 also, as I stated earlier, houses all of our administrative staff. So it's more square footage, and it's a little bit larger into it. My deputy chief didn't have to stand up, tell me to hit the clicker again, I remembered. So this is just an example of some of the future projects, and we talked before about having funding, not having funding. We still put these projects out there and plan for them so that we know what is funded and what's not, what we need to work on securing for the future. And it's something that we constantly work towards to make sure that we can have the funds available at the time the stations are needed. Future Fire Station A right now, you can see as we were gathering things, surtax plan went out. There's some funds that we put aside for that station. That station is tentatively supposed to open around 2028. We're in discussions with the developer. Can't really reveal how all that is going to come out, but we are expecting to have some help with developers and contributions. We're working through that right now. But we think that station is going to work out. And these costs include not just the fire station, but just like you talked about before, it's the station, the equipment, it's FF&E, it's turnkey, it's the fire apparatus, the ambulance, brush truck. Okay, they do not include our staffing costs. These are just capturing capital pieces. Future Fire Station B. Right now, it's listed as surtax funding, but as I said, as impact fees come in city proper, we put those into account. As we have projects that need them as they come forward, we take those funds and we move those over towards that. So we put, I'm sure, some impact fees towards that station, and depending on where that station is located, if it's in a master plan development, we'll be doing a developer agreement also that consists of that. There's future ladder truck, 2032. We put that aside in case as the city grows. Right now, our ladder trucks are all 75-foot straight stick aerials. You guys, when you look out, you see fire trucks, you see different configurations of fire apparatus. Some fire apparatus have a platform. You can get up to 110 foot in the area is sometimes good. I have a lot of people that say, well, geez, if we build a building taller than that, you can't get to the top floor. The ladder truck's not big enough. In New York City, they can't either. Sometimes having a platform truck gives us different things. As developments come into the community, whether they be a commercial building or a commercial business, it triggers a square footage over a certain percent, so it's 100,000 square feet. If it's a master plan community or a development that's going in, if it triggers greater than 1% of the population, and above the triggers, it triggers what's called a concurrency study that we do through NFPA 1, which is the National Fire Code, gives the ability to do that. An independent company comes in, they do a study, and they see how that particular building, how that business, or how that community is going to impact us. It measures our response times against what our standards are for, and looks at national standards and says, how is this going to impact us, and what resources would we need to mitigate that and be able to properly protect it. So then we take that information, and if there's a gap somewhere, then we determine how we fund that. So if we need a lab truck in the future, we have this on there. If it's something that would be triggered by development, certainly it's something that we could move funding and do some different things. Public safety radios. Public safety radios, a lot of our high dollar capital things, they have a life, just like your cell phone. It only works for a certain period of time. Things change. So that's a project that's out there in the future. It's funded through surtax, and that's for what's shown on here. That's actually some of that is police and some of that is fire. That's for our 800 system radios. So as they go bad, they become out of support. As they change the system, we purchase new ones. Public safety training complex. In the first column there, you'll see that was previous surtax money. That's the money that was used to see the training tower that's out there off of Price Boulevard near Northport High School. The plans for that eventually to be a public safety training complex, so not just the building itself, but have classrooms to be able to do and have offices for our training staff out there to be able to operate on site, whether you go into a classroom, have an air conditioned facility, have restroom facilities, to be able to take a shower, When that training staff moves out of our current fire administration, it kind of coincides with time when new staff would be needed coming into fire administration, and so it's kind of a swap. As you can see, we don't have full funding for that. You can see the unfunded amount out there. That's something we'll be looking for appropriations or things in the future, find creative ways to fund that, so that we can continue to do that. Having the ability to train here in the city, it saves us time, saves us money, it keeps our resources here in case while we're training there's an event we need to respond to. It's very valuable. Station 83 and 84 hardening projects, that was money that was determined after we had some storm damage and things like that throughout the buildings in the city. We looked at some things and said, what can we do to make these facilities a little bit more resilient and make our staff a little bit safer in the event of a storm. So let's bring some of those things, up to a higher level of protection as far as window protection, doing some things with the roof and making them more secure. HVAC system, air conditioning systems need to be replaced. So you see that project on there and how that's funded. 50% from the general fund, 50% from the fire department, and then the grant. The grant was for the hardening projects. The other portion is funded by us. That project is currently ongoing right now. And then the last column you'll see on there is a high water vehicle, and actually we're working on 2 of those right now. One of those is being funded through a grant, one of those is being funded through impact fees. I think those are late 2027. The first one will come in, the second one's probably a year following that. Currently in the past, what we've used is, if you've seen them out there before, the old military brush trucks is what goes out there. They work. Part of the problem is they're very, very expensive to maintain because they're older. They don't have protection from water intrusion into the axles and certain areas of the engine compartment and things like that. If you've ever been into certain areas of our city, houses can be high and dry, but there's some places that are 4 and 5 feet out in the States where on the road there's 4 and 5 feet of water. We need the ability to get in there. Sometimes boats are okay, but you can't move that many people with that. So we've managed to work and do things with the vehicles we have now, but the cost to replace them or to get them through the flood season has been very expensive. So these newer vehicles are actually built. It's a company that's building them now. They look very similar to the vehicles that we have, but they are built and designed to not allow water to intrude into the axles, into the engine compartment and things like that. So they're actually designed and built so that we can put a lot of people, if we need to do an evacuation or bring supplies out to a flooded area, we can do that. And that's all I have for today. And we're waiting for questions afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Mike Will, I'm the Acting Utilities Director. I'm going to go over some infrastructure, basically supporting infrastructure, supporting growth with infrastructure. Some of the projects we have are our effluent pipeline, which is basically the wasteline leaving our wastewater facility. It's reached its capacity, so we're working on a project to change that from a 16-inch line to a 30-inch line for the reject. Price Boulevard, we talked about that. We do a lot of cooperation both with fire and public works, the utility department. Price Boulevard, and I know we've had delays from utilities on that, but it's a big deal when you have infrastructure in the ground with general development that was put in the 70s and 80s. And the way Price Boulevard was developed was from 41 up. So Salford came up and developed, and Cranberry came up and developed, and then they connected the pieces all along the way. So a lot of those pipelines in between there were hodgepodge at best. So we're actually correcting that with this project with a 16-inch continuous water main and a 30-inch force main. We are also, as part of this project, we realized with working with Public Works that they're doing a bridge replacement project. So we're going to be designing from that 30-inch a 24-inch, basically from Sumter Boulevard to Springhaven. Our master plan, we do a master plan every 5 years, we true it up, basically told us that our pipe capacity in that area would be exceeded by 2037. So we worked together with our projects. We realized they're replacing a bridge. Instead of us spending money deflecting and coordinating around the bridge project. We're going to go ahead and correct it all at one time. That way we don't have to go back and in 2036 plan on replacing the force main and try to work around it at that time. Our Southwest plant. We talked about the growth up there, Welland Park area. We are in the process working with the developer from expanding that plant from a 2 million gallon a day plant to a 4 million gallon a day plant. Some of that does tie into the next topic of Winchester Ranch. There's been a lot of talk about that, possible annexation. We're all coordinating with that to where development pays for development. So everything that is up in that area was paid for, installed by the developer for the utility. They do it as a conveyance agreement, so we accept that as part of their growth. They built the water plant, they built the wastewater plant, and they're responsible for expanding those facilities if they continue to develop. What we collect from our ratepayers does not go for development growth. So development pays for itself, and as part of it, we accept it as part of the conveyance agreement to the utility, and then we own and operate it and maintain it from there. Regulatory. We are highly regulated, starting with EPA, that's our federal level. Then we go to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. That's who oversees us. Sets our rules, sets our staffing requirements, sets our licensing requirements on what we have to have in order to operate, in order to work in the system. Our Southwest Florida Water Management District, that is any water we pull out of the ground, we treat, we have to account for all of that, we have to report on all of that on our monthly reports. So all of the water that's used, whether it's groundwater or surface water, and they set the limits on what we can pull and how much we can treat. And that's part of our consumptive use permit. Florida Department of Health is actually our local regulator directly. So they, certain counties in Florida, Sarasota being one, allows the Department of Health to oversee, basically help out the DEP with the compliance inspections. We do annual inspections every year. DEP or DOH comes on site, they go through all of our logbooks, they check all our operators, make sure their licenses are current, they make sure our generators are running, our emergency backups. We have to have the logs and all of our monthly reports that go through. So that's part of our regulatory compliance, and it's highly regulated. Drought. I know everybody thinks we get lots of rain. But in actuality, we are still short on our rainfall. We currently, our average is around 37 inches this time of the year. We're at 29 inches. So, and in the state of Florida, we're 30 inches short on rainfall for replenishing the aquifers. So we are still in a drought condition. We do want to encourage and push water conservation. Because it does take time. When it does rain, it's feast or famine, really. I mean, it all depends on the season. But it's been a dry year. It's been, we're starting to get rain. We've had, I think July we had 8 inches of rain. And then the other months have been 4 inches. So April, May were 4 inches, and we're at 4 inches right now, as of yesterday. I didn't count today's rain. So, but we do, and we do report that to SwiftWater as well, because they do set the water restrictions, the Southwest Florida Water Management District. And they're looking at the ground table, they're looking at the water, they're looking at the canals and what we're pulling. So they're pushing that down on us to enforce water conservation. This is fun and exciting because the utilities has been displaced since Hurricane Ian. We have been scattered throughout multiple departments. Right now, we're half housed at Public Works. We've been in social services, we've been at City Hall, we've been in trailers. So this is fun and exciting because this is actually going to be the first official building owned by the Northport Utilities. Since we became a utility in 1992, we have always operated out of a facility that Public Works owns. It was the old Armory and the old Water Control District's building. And we outgrew that facility in 2014, 2015 timeframe. And we did have this plan. However, we've had several setbacks and several hurricanes that didn't help us. So this is anticipated to open October timeframe. We actually had a substantial walkthrough on this facility on Friday. We've been meeting with the developer, the contractor on this regularly, keeping this going. This is not only built for now, but it's built for the future. There's room for expansion on this. So this will be the utility site, which is located off of Pan American Boulevard by Trot Circle. It's across the street from Trot Circle. So Children's Way. I can't remember if it's 6705 or 6710 Children's Way. It's one of those, but yes, so this, hopefully October timeframe, we'll know more after we do our substantial, but this is actually fun and exciting for utilities to actually, one, get back together as a group, because we are scattered through multiple departments right now, trying to operate and run. This will pull us all together under one area, one facility to work together. So supporting growth with infrastructure. So water meter upgrades, and this is going to tie into a lot of things that we're doing. And so we have currently we have an AMR drive-by meter system that we operate. And basically there's an antenna on the truck and we can drive down the road and pick up the reads, but we only read every 30 days. So we are actually converting over to what they call an AMI, which is an interface and it's real-time read that we can get a read every hour, every day, continuous. But it's not only that we can get that read, the homeowner can get the same read and track their usage as well. So and if you call in and you have questions with a bill, the customer service rep can log in and look at the same screen you're looking at to help explain it. So this is going to be very good. Right now we have about 11,000 meters in the ground. It is 4 more years, planned for 4 more years until we deploy it everywhere. Right now we do have Heron Creek does have it. AMI meters, Island Walk, Grand Prairie, so Atwater area and Bobcat Village have AMI meters at this time. So it's a work in progress, but this is going to be the future of the utility. And basically what happens, this is what an AMI meter looks like. And it basically a cellular network, and it sends the information instantaneously to the cloud, so to say, and then directly to the billing office so they can look at the accounts. But it's good on 2 aspects because there's a 360 portal and customers get the buy-in, and we want to do better at water conservation, and this is a great way to do that as well, because we want to help the customers understand the usage and track their usage. I don't like getting the phone calls when there was a leak and it started 2 days after we read the meter and they said, there's no way I used 15,000 gallons this month, because we don't read it for 30 days later. And then we can data log it and we can show where everything's at, but it's after the fact. So with this customer portal, it's going to be My360. Customers can log in and they can actually set thresholds alerts. So if your normal usage is 4,000 gallons a month, you could set a threshold alert and say, hey, if I hit 4,000 gallons, I want to know. And then on our end, we can set alerts and say, okay, if there's continuous movement on this meter for 24 hours, it's going to send us an alert. So we're going to say, oh, hey, there's something going on. And then we can call you. We can let you know we're getting a read on your meter. It hasn't stopped since yesterday. And it leads into water conservation. It leads into, I think, great customer service. We don't want to spend staff time to go back and evaluate all these bills and make the adjustments and look at, it's going to eliminate all that, and that's the ultimate goal here, is to allow the homeowners to have some sight into the utility, into the consumption of what's going on, and set their own alerts, set their, and you can go back and you can see what your normal usage has been. Did you use 1,000 gallons this month? Did you use 3,000 gallons that? And maybe it was Christmas and you had relatives over, so you're good. So you say, yep, I understand that. So, but this is what's coming. We're in the process of rolling that out. This is exciting for us. I think it's going to be great for our customers. It's going to definitely lead towards water conservation. And that's what we're pushing toward. So with that, I will turn it back over. Oh, wait, questions? Okay.
Just thinking. Okay, real quick. Wonderful. So I'm going to keep a mic up here, and then I'll come around for questions. Please be respectful. Okay, coming around.
Thank you for that presentation. It was great. This is my first meeting, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. But I was really hoping for an update on River Road. So I've been avoiding River Road for about 3 years now because I hate that road. But I was pretty surprised. I go to Inglewood a lot, and I was pretty surprised that the road by the new high school that was built was allowed to bust up into River Road before there was any widening or any. I mean, there was a little merge lane when you come out of that area, but literally it has bogged down that road in the busy times of the day. And there was an accident there recently at that light, the new light that was put in there. And we were backed up all the way to Inglewood trying to get through there because there's still 2 lanes over there. So I was just wondering what the plan was for River Road going toward Inglewood and when the River Road going toward 75 would be open.
So, Chuck Speed, Public Works Director. Can you guys hear me?
No.
Chuck Speed, Public Works Director. So unfortunately, that's a county project, not a city project. I do know there are plans to widen that section of River Road south of 41 as that develops out, but I don't have a lot of information on that.
Is there a place to get information on that?
I would say go to the county's website and to their transportation page, and they should have some updates on River Road. I'm so sorry I can't answer that.
No, it's okay.
I don't want to speak for them. I've driven through there myself and have the same question.
And not as far as timeline, but one of the things that you brought up was you were surprised that they brought that road through to River Road. So one of the reasons, again, is we're working with the developer on a master plan community, and they're trying to meet the needs of all the city services and things like that. We need to have access for the fire department, whether it be for ambulance or fire trucks. And because of the configuration and the way that was built, they had not put that road through to River Road and then added school opening up on top of that. That's one way in and one way out to that school. And all of those roads were going to be kind of choked with traffic and really not have any ability to get out of the way. So it gave us a secondary access point if units were coming back from, say, a hospital in Inglewood, or if they were coming in, they could come in off the River Road and access it faster, as well as units that are internal to Welland Park use the main roads. So whenever we have something like that, really, there are multiple access points to get into that facility and hopefully facilitate a faster response. So they work with us, they open that up here. What you see there now is not what that intersection is going to ultimately look like. They opened up early to be able to accommodate that. It's going to look differently in the future. My understanding is that I think they're thinking about roundabouts there, which are nobody loves. So, I wanted to touch on
I have a question also about roadways.
If I
Questions
could,
about,
apologies, if I could just add to that answer. So the department has the section from 41 to I-75, and we are under construction at this time. I am not the project manager over that. However, on our website, the swflroads.com, you'll be able to identify that project specifically. It's State Road 777 or River Road, as you would prefer. And it will give you what's happening there right now, and then also an expected completion date as far as when that's to be done. Yep.
my question is about the proposed roundabout by Cranberry and Hillsborough that is supposed to alleviate backup from 41. There's the gas station over there, and it's always backup. And the question I have is, I can't imagine how a roundabout a couple of yards from 41 is going to stop a backup of traffic at the light from 41 into that roundabout. If it's backed up into Hillsborough now, it's going to be backed up into the roundabout, and I just don't understand how that's supposed to work. Good question. It will work.
So the roundabout, there's going to be some changes made to that intersection, including a roundabout. There's going to be some changes made to 41 itself. So they're going to add an additional left turn lane coming southbound on that section of 41, which is going to pull the traffic into the roundabout. And the roundabout's going to stop that staging that's happening there. It's going to keep that traffic that's coming up on Cranberry and Hillsborough from stacking up both directions. So it's going to move and function much better than it is now, because right now the intersection doesn't function, because it will back up completely past where you can't get off of Hillsborough. So this is going to keep that all moving. There's going to be additional lanes added in.
It seems to me it's going to be backed up into the roundabout. It's not that many yards between 41 and Hillsborough there.
Right, and if cars are staged in the roundabout, then they're going to move as soon as that light changes. And every angle, every car coming into the roundabout will have that opportunity to merge together, instead of just the cars on Cranberry being able to go and leaving all the cars on Hillsborough trying to go left, stuck at Hillsborough.
I still see that it's going to be backed up into the roundabout. I don't envision it flowing. I envision it backing up. As long as that light on Cranberry is going to keep people backed up, you're going to back up right into the roundabout, and it's not going to flow.
So when the light changes,
It's only going to flow when the light changes.
that roundabout is going to flow. Right now, you're not allowing any left turn movement out of Hillsborough on Cranberry. This is going to allow that movement for that light. And the timings in the lights will be changed to allow for that movement to get through.
Okay.
So you'll have a longer green coming from this way to account for that stacking traffic.
I hope so.
It's been a project long in the works.
Thank you, good evening. I just wanted to ask if you have a time frame for when people in East Northport will be transitioning from well water to city water, and if that's going to be something that's mandatory. Thank you.
Well, currently, we had to do a sewer shed plan according to Senate Bill 712, which came out in 2020. And we had to identify zones within Northport on how we would develop, and this leads towards septic systems. Their goal is to take septic systems off, and in order to run sewer, you have to run water. But we do not have a set timeline because we don't have the funding to do that. We're still working on phase one, which is the Southford area. We luckily have applied for grants with that project. We got about $7.5 million in grants for phase one, for having the project ready, shovel ready. And that's what they were looking for, and that was part of the Senate bill acquisition when they put that into effect, was to create the funding mechanism to help support that grant funding. A lot of the areas, the funding is really focused on the springs areas, the protected springs, anything that's protected That's where a lot of the money's going right now. But, you know,
I don't mind, I like it, I'm
right, and as far as the mandatory connections, there was a meeting recently, a couple months ago. It went back and forth. We actually have a legal review on that now. When we get the results of that, we will bring it back to commission to discuss for a legal opinion on that.
This question is for the chief. Chief, I assume when you buy equipment, like I saw the paramedic vehicle, I guess, 600,000, ladder truck, 1.3 million, you can't just walk into the fire wholesaler and or distributor or dealership and buy something off the lot. So two questions is, what's the lead time to buy those types of vehicles? And also, how many vendors can you actually source to even purchase those kinds of assets?
That's a great question. So, going back pre-COVID, typically, they started getting stretched a little bit, but to order a fire apparatus or a fire engine or a ladder truck, typically from time of order until time of delivery was 12 to 15 months. Okay? One of the things we've done in the city, we found over time, is we have maintained and tried to stay with a consistent provider for fire apparatus for consistency of parts, familiarity of apparatus and things like that. So there are other fire manufacturers, and every so many years we look and see, is there something significant enough changing in price or in things that we need to do that would provide a better opportunity for some savings. For the last, I don't know, I think 15 years, our fire apparatus predominantly is Pierce Manufacturing for our engines and our ladder trucks. It's different for brush trucks. We look at what's on state contract and we kind of build those and piecemeal them. Ambulance is the same thing. Ambulances, we will select a manufacturer, we'll utilize that for a period of time, and again, for consistency of parts and configuration of the ambulances, we try to stick with the manufacturer. We've had over the years, periods of time where we ran into problems. Either they didn't work reliable or there was manufacturing issues, and so we've switched vendors. We actually, right now, are in the process of switching ambulance vendors. But fire apparatus right now for an engine, lead time is about 3 years. Right, so we really have to plan ahead. When you order it today, it's 3 years before it gets here. If you think about, when we talked about some of those fire stations that are out there, and you look at the dates are, so the fire station that we just opened in Welland Park, that second fire station, that apparatus was ordered 3 years ago. So it's challenging to, one, make sure that we're looking at the timeline. Are we really sure that's when the station is opening? And then make sure we're working with the equipment manufacturers, because it's not just the fire truck too, but it's all the equipment. So it's timing of everything so that when the station opens, we have that apparatus coming in about that same time. We'll utilize some of our reserve apparatus, which is what we did at the fire station 87, because we did have a couple of month gap. Use reserve apparatus until that new stuff comes in. Ladder trucks are, I think they were stretched almost to 40 months from the time of order until the time of arrival. And ambulances, we were with the manufacturer we were just getting away from. I think we were, Chief, 3 years, is that accurate? Yeah, 3 years, so 36 months for ambulances. The vendor that we're switching to says that they can get them faster. Get that down to 2 years. 2 years, the vendor we're looking at right now?
9 months.
9 months. Okay. So part of the issue is, so COVID created a problem. Supply, demand, price increases. We had giant increases in price for apparatus over a very short period of time. So if you think about it, because we can't borrow money, we have to put money away. So when we buy that apparatus, we're paying for it in whole. So when you build out, we do a 10-year plan, and we think about the lifespan of a frontline fire apparatus is 10 years by NFPA. So that means typically in a normal market at year 9, we would have ordered it at the end of year 8, beginning of year 9, and we would have it right with us, and then it would go to reserve for a number of years. So now we're having to order some of that apparatus at year 6, 7, and hoping that we get it in time. So it's definitely changed significantly on our timeline for delivery and reliability of apparatus. With the change in diesel and reliability with sensors and things like that, I can tell you, I wish I could go back and get all of our old fire apparatus back, rebuild all the motors that didn't have the depth unit and everything else, because they were much more reliable and would run for much longer. But it is a consistent and constant problem keeping apparatus on the road now. I mean, when you look at how much fire apparatus costs, ambulances cost, it's crazy. The reliability is not nearly what it used to be either, so it causes a lot of problems. Does that answer your question, sir? Thank you.
Can you tell me, this is to the fire chief, what is a little more information regarding the future fire stations A and B in terms of the targeted locations? And then the second question that I had goes, I heard about Sumter, I heard about Toledo Blade, I heard nothing about the Yorkshire, and what concrete steps the city has done to meet what the DOT has set up as guidelines or requests before the DOT does go further with that development.
I'll go ahead and start. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to sit. I like to sit. I like to walk and talk. So the reason we used to put a projected location for a fire station because as the city's developing, if those timelines change or the developer, something might get triggered faster than others. But instead of putting an actual location, when we list those on there now, that's why it's A and B. You see that. So one of the fire stations that we're working on now that I talked about, we're working with the developer. We'll do that fire station A, and if things go the way that we think that we're going to, that's Toledo Blade and I-75 area, the northeast quadrant of that. On the heels of that, and very quickly, probably within a year of that station being done, again, notwithstanding any projected timeline delays on the side of the developer or anything like that. If the annexation comes into that's being contemplated for Welland Park, we've already done a concurrency study, so if that happens, that additional area coming in, we have a projected timeline. We think when the next station would come on, that station would be hopefully, our goal would be to do another developer agreement on that station. AC 6 and 10, which is out Yorkshire Loop, we know that we have a station location of this property out there that's probably not ideally located. It's something that we obtained years and years ago, looking at how the city may develop. Depending on how that develops out there, we'll determine how many fire stations we need out in that particular area. So our station furthest out to the east right now is at Haverland. We know that we need at least one fire station, potentially multiple stations out there. As we get closer to AC 6 and 10 developing and know what those are, we'll do a concurrency study. That'll tell us what's being developed out there, what the road network is, what our response times are, and what we'll need as far as station locations to be able to refine on the appropriate timelines. And then, again, there's other areas of the city too. At some point in time, depending on call volume and things like that, there's a potential that at some point in the future, you could need a station out somewhere in the middle of the estates. I don't think so. It's a possibility. It's something that we've left out there. There's a possibility in the future. Right now, one of our hot areas is actually Cranberry area in Hillsborough. That might be a smaller size station, might be a singular unit for like an ALSM unit or a rescue pumper or something like that at some point in the future. But again, not every fire station has to be, right now, we kind of have a model size and configuration, but as we fill in, and as we get busier, if we need to infill because call volume in a certain area and hotspots need to be able to get there in time or availability of units, it could be a smaller station or a singular unit, so we kind of have that, it's a moving target as we look for those things. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the question you were asking is, thank you.
That is a loaded question for Yorkshire. I'm going to try to answer this to the best of my ability. So there is no identified new interchange or new location for an interchange. And I say that because that process to identify a new interchange, well, let me rewind. Any change that you do to any interchange, whether that's signalizing like we have at Sumter and Toledo, or changing the geometry of certain ramps, or full-blown adding an interchange as you're suggesting, and anything in between, it requires a review from FHWA. And depending on what you're doing specifically, or what you're suggesting to do, determines a much more depth of that review. So if you were to add a new interchange, A couple of the things that they're looking for is there an existing network around that proposed area that feeds in well to that proposed section? And does it make sense, right? And then there's a myriad of different checks and balances that you do as far as environmental and socioeconomical and so on and so forth. There's so much that you kind of have to evaluate. In addition to that, you're also looking at the adjacent interchanges as well. And you're questioning, has the max improvements been done at these adjacent interchanges to take on that level of effort? Or are those max capacities out to where it does justify a new interchange? And so there's a lot of questions, and you have to kind of justify a lot of that stuff. This has been an ongoing conversation for many years, and it's something that the state has been in coordination with the city, with the county, with both MPOs for Sarasota Manatee MPO as well as Charlotte Punta Gorda MPO. So there is a very large coordinated effort as far as, okay, what makes sense here? The biggest thing is making sure that there is a built-out supporting network on the local side, and this is from a state perspective, that is supportive of any location. So no location has been truly identified. It's been proposed many times for Yorkshire, and I can see why that could make sense for many reasons, but again, nothing has been determined at all. So.
And I'll touch on that just a bit more. So the Yorkshire rain tree has been thrown out there and talked about. We have had conversations with FDOT, MPOs had conversations, right? It's been on our list. And we do have a list of recommended infrastructure improvements that not only include Northport, include Charlotte County as well as DeSoto County. It's a very extensive list of improvements that needed to be done. Before we would even propose that and have the highway administration look at that intersection. We're tracking that. It will always be on our list. It makes sense, right? To relieve some of the pressure on Kings Highway. But right now, there's been no plan to invest in that infrastructure out there. No coordinated plan between the city and the two different counties. But we do have that on our radar, and if that opportunity comes around, it's going to be very expensive and it's a lot of coordination, but we'll continue to work as the city to do what we have to get that interchange on the list of one. You know, it seems like a good location for us. For us, it seems like a great location, but there's a lot of steps to take as mentioned.
Just a question on the intersection of 41 and Sumter. Is there any plans to change that intersection with the construction that's happening there?
So the construction at Sumter and 41, you mean in the shopping plazas?
Shopping plazas and stuff.
So there will be some changes to that intersection. They're proposing potentially putting a turn lane off of Sumter into the back side of that plaza. It shouldn't impact Sumter, the intersection of Sumter and 41. They initially proposed it to be a little closer to 41, which we weren't in support of because it would have impacted those turn lanes and shortened some of those, which we know how that already stacks up. But the improvements there will be further to the north and shouldn't impact that intersection.
As a follow-up to the previous question that dealt with water and sewage, part of your presentation dealt with new facilities that are going to be constructed and cost to help with water and sewage, but there are a lot of properties in Northport that don't have access to these, that work with septic tanks and well water. Are these properties ever going to receive city water and sewage? If so, when? And if not, is there any accommodation for these properties in terms of taxes and assessments, since they're not getting access to these facilities?
So the expansion of the facilities now are developer driven. They are paying for the expansion, they're constructing all the expansion that is going on with that facility. And we The utilities is an enterprise fund. So what that means is we do not get any ad valorem taxes. We generate our own funds through the ratepayers of the utility. We take those funds that we get from the ratepayers and we invest in the existing infrastructure as far as repair and maintenance, upkeep of rehabbing the plants. But yes, if we do start to infill, we have our master plan that will address expansions. We have plans, we just don't have the funding mechanism behind that to support that. So right now our options are grants or long-term planning, with the existing ratepayers paying that cost, and it's not cheap. It's not cheap to add infrastructure. So other than the sewer expansion program that was mandated through Senate Bill 712, we do not have a plan outside of that for expansion of water and wastewater services.
Second question, if I may. There's been small flags out on the street for, it seems like, quite some time that I understood were going to be the burying of power lines and possibly cable lines. Is anything going on with that? And if so, when are you going to get to Crittenton Street?
Well, the flags that are out there are actually identifying somebody, a contractor, somebody asked to locate because they're going to install or they're going to dig. They call 811, and we have to go out as a utility. And phone companies have to do that, power companies have to do that. We do that as a utility. We mark all the water and wastewater infrastructure. When anybody's going to dig in a right of way, we stay on city easements and city property, and we will identify the infrastructure that's in the ground for any construction project going on. So I don't know what they're doing. They could be installing fiber lines, and we have to go out and mark our water and sewer so they don't hit those.
So is Northport not burying the power lines? That is not a project here?
No, that's FPL, Florida Power and Light. That's,
Are they doing? Do you know?
Yes, they've been working, I know, because they've been cutting our service lines. Yes, they have been pulling them down, and I know there's an initiative, and I don't know, Trish or Chuck can talk a little more on the initiative of moving the overhead power, and I know this came through several hurricanes and power poles knocked down, but they are trying to put the power infrastructure underground. I don't know what the timing of that is. I don't know what their schedule is on that.
So FPL had a Harding project. FPL had a Harding project. They started shortly after Ian. It was mainly on the boulevards, and you saw some of those poles, the power lines come off the poles. A lot of the poles are still there because they have some other utilities on them until they go underground, which would be your cable, your fiber. As far as I know, the bulk of that hardening project is complete, and that was to put things underground to harden from storm damage. I'm not sure that on the area they're talking, I don't believe that they're putting it underground in that neighborhood. I'm not aware of that. If you wanted more information, you could give our office a call, because anytime they do any work in the right of way, we typically, we have to do a permit for that, and our guys will keep an eye on what's going on out there. But if it's just locate flags, that could be anybody doing any work in the right of way that's going to disturb the ground, and that could even be public works coming out to redig the swales. It could be any one of those, a number of things.
Okay, my question has to do with the water. With all the development and everything, you're saying that we really can't expand what we have because you don't have the funds? I don't know if I'm the only one in this room, but I've had my water tested on a regular basis, and so has I've had some of my friends. Do you know that the water that comes out of the tap is borderline potable. Most of us don't drink it because we know it's not quite up to par. But borderline potable, and you have no plans to, expand what water we're producing or whatever you're doing with it, but you have no problem building one house after another, apartments. Of course, the hospital, which God forbid we needed so bad, but all the development. Now, where is the water coming from?
Any commercial development is required to install water and wastewater infrastructure. And as part of that development, they convey that to the city. So they have to bring water and wastewater infrastructure to a commercial development. So, or a large platted like Welland Park, they have to bring the infrastructure in. Any platted communities will have to bring that infrastructure in.
And have they done so?
Yes. Yep, they do that, the developer does that.
My question is really about the quality of our water that we are all drinking.
You're on the city water system?
Oh, yeah.
Have
Yes, I
you
am.
called in to?
Oh, I have.
Okay, because you can call in, we can come out and check that out.
Okay.
So, and we have our water treatment plant. We actually run a combination of RO and surface water, and we have a standalone RO plant as well. And we are doing a feasibility study now for groundwater supply for future demand needs that will be needed. So we're looking at our future supply, which will be RO as well.
Oh, you're fine. Okay, I appreciate it.
My question has to do with that whole, everything that's being built at Toledo Blade at 776. I think there's more homes going in there. There's supposed to be a Publix. I don't know what else is going there. My question is not about that. It's about the road between 41 and 776 Toledo Blade. That road is a mess all the time. And now, what is going to happen? You're not going to be able to get people into that area over there unless that road is widened or something is done along there. There's potholes,
Sure, so just, I want to understand exactly where you're talking. You're talking from 41
to 776. To 776 Toledo Blade.
Yes, that's a county road, Charlotte County.
It's not in the city at all.
So the city limits and.
That's exactly my question.
Where it crosses Hillsborough is the end of the city limits.
Okay, so there you show.
So give Charlotte County a call.
So are you saying that all that's going in, so maybe I'm wrong, 776 and Toledo Blade, that's Charlotte County? Yeah. So that's not.
Hillsborough is
basically Charlotte County.
You're outside of Northport City.
Seven buildings. North Chamberlain is for process. We will be up there. So they're going to have a sewage. North Chamberlain, yeah.
Sir? Circling back to the question about the Benderson development, at 41 and Sumter, could you expand further on what you said that there's more going on North Sumter in that area? Could you tell us more about that?
In North Sumter.
You made a comment about how they'd like to put a right turn lane into the back of the development, but then you said there was going to be a little bit more up Sumter that was going on. Did I misunderstand you?
Yes, ma'am. No, they're adding a turn lane. Initially, they wanted the turn lane to be closer to 41, which we didn't like, FDOT didn't like. They're just pulling that back. So it will be before you get to the turn lanes, that won't impact the turn lanes going, which would be south on, not south, it would be east.
So nothing happening at Greenwood, nothing happening at Pocatella, any of those?
No, ma'am.
And then my next question is for Chief. Can you explain
Yeah, if you can.
possibly the feasibility of building up on your fire stations? Maybe to house police administration or city administration, or why we didn't make any of the fire stations multi-level?
So first I will tell you that I would love to have a multi-level fire station because fire planes are super cool.
You're fine. Thank you. You're fine. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, just a little bit of humor. You raised a great question, and honestly, when we look at our stations, and when we looked at things about expanding in our areas, and we specifically looked at Station 81 when we were going to expand that project, we looked at going up instead of out, and the cost to go up is exponentially greater than it was to expand that footprint a little bit, for a lot of reasons. ADA access, even if we said the whole upstairs is only full of fire department personnel, there still has to be public access, there has to be ADA access, which would require an elevator and lots of other things. So, and then the hardening of the structure, the construction that goes into it, the cost to go up and to go vertical is a lot more money too than us to expand the footprint. So I love your question. We wanted to go up. I actually really wanted to fire right from my office down to the Bay floor, and I was shot down. But anyway, but thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Okay. Just to follow up on the water question. So you're saying the developers are responsible for all the infrastructure. I assume that's all the pipe they lay, but then they connect to the water system somewhere. And the sewer system. My bill, I moved to Florida about 5-6 years ago, has gone up on average $30 to $40 a month. So yes, and I've even called to make sure it wasn't a usage issue, it's just the rate increases or whatever. I think our neighborhood gets your new meters. I'm just really concerned, that woman left. All the apartment houses, all the new developments, what are they connecting to? And now we're under water restriction. I mean, we can't control the environment, so when we have a drought, we have to take measures, but it's like, is that going to run out? Like, it's very concerning.
The short answer is no, we're not going to run out of water because we're surrounded by water. It's going to be what it's going to cost to treat the water is what it's going to come down to. We could treat salt water. We can treat TDS of 24,000 with an RO. So that's salt water. And Tampa Bay has a desal plant up there where they actually pull out of the ocean and they treat from salt water. It's actually a pretty neat process. So that is part of the planning. Whatever impacts that a developer has on the existing system, they have to account for and bring it up to standards. And if it's capacity needs, they have to meet those capacity needs, which is why a developer had to build a water plant and had to build a wastewater plant.
Okay, so they are adding to your water plant.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, they pay for that infrastructure. And even if it's in our collection system or distribution system, and if the side lines are not sized appropriately because we have to meet fire protection and fire flow, they have to replace those lines as part of their development. So we still maintain our fire protection and our flow throughout the system, the same thing with our collection system and our lift station. If their development is impacting the flow in the force main, they have to fix that as part of their development. If they need bigger pumps, if the panels are, if it's a small panel and it only has 5 horsepower pumps, but their impact to their development will stop that station from running, they're gonna have to bring that station up to speed so it can still pump and function as it was permitted to do. So if it means redoing the entire station, new panel, so they're gonna install theirs and they're gonna have to fix whatever's existing.
It just seems like the building doesn't start.
The New Star Farms is going to need to do the same thing with their 3,000 homes that they're going to build?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have several questions. First off, for the emergency preparedness lady, did you tell us where that emergency operations center was going to be? And I just missed it.
No, I did not, sorry. Good question. It's actually going to be near the City Hall campus, right next to Fire Station 81, where that's currently being built. We're going to be right next door for great coordination with my BFF fire chief over here.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Next question is for the utilities man at the end. You talked about making these mains larger. I assume that's going down price as well?
Yes, Price Boulevard is increasing, well, there's currently a 12-inch and an 8-inch force main.
Is that happening while Price is being reconstructed, or are you going to have?
Nope, it's being done now, actually, ahead of the road project, so they can pave, and we won't have to go back in there.
Good plan. Next question, anybody, I don't care who, I don't understand impact fee and surtax. Are either of those connected to property taxes?
No. So, impact fees, and I'll pass it down, but, so impact fees are the most restricted funds that we get in as a city. There are different impact fees when a developer comes in, when a house is built, when a complex goes in, and so fire rescue has an impact fee. There's impact fees for the different departments. Those funds have to be used for capital infrastructure. They can't be used for personnel. They can't be used for operational costs. So it's all capital. So that does help support infrastructure and some of those capital things. Surtax money is your one cent sales tax money. It is a little bit less restricted. Impact fees also have to be used for expansion of service. So it has to be something greater than. So a new fire station, a new fire truck, and a new fire station, you use impact fees. What you can't do is you can't buy a replacement fire truck with impact fees. Again, we talk about restriction of funds. Surtax money is your 1 cent sales tax money, and when that gets passed through road referendum, the county kind of starts with the county, works down through the city. Those funds are allocated for different needs and areas and kind of fold into the plan that gets approved and goes through. Those funds also have to be used for capital. They can't for capital purchases. They can be used for infrastructure. They cannot be used for personnel. They cannot be used for operational costs. Same thing. But they can be replacements. They can be capital repairs to current facilities, apparatus, and things like that. So they're a little bit less restricted than impact fees, but they're still restricted. There are assessments that you should get on your tax bill. Your assessments are non-ad valorem. Your assessments go to specific functions and benefits to property, not to people. Okay, so property, so fire rescue, the district, fire district portion. When you see the fire assessment at the bottom of your tax bill, that pays for the fire side of fire rescue. Ad valorem taxes, typically by definition, have to be used as a benefit to people. So emergency medical services, ALS service, is a benefit to people, not property. And so that's funded through ad valorem taxes, and you can kind of apply that to all different parts of the city. Does that help answer your question?
Absolutely.
Did I do okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Are you there? Hello? Yeah, I got a question about the Cocoa waterway. When are we going to clean that up?
So that's a good question. As we talked about earlier, this has been a very, very dry season for us. Typically, when the temperatures start to rise in the summer and we start getting a little bit of rain, we get what we would call kind of a flush of water lettuce and some other aquatic vegetation in our waterways. Normally, in a normal year, we get lots of rain, and a lot of that vegetation gets to flush through our system. Since we haven't had rain, if you live near one of my water control structures, you'll see that there's not much water pouring over them right now, if any. So that water lettuce and the hyacinth has kind of nowhere to go. So there's, we do have methods to treat that, but the problem is when the water temperatures are high, like they are now, and you don't have movement in your water, if we go and spray that water hyacinth or that water lettuce and that dies off, right, your dissolved oxygen in the water is already low because of the temperature. that decaying material within the waterway then depletes the rest of that dissolved oxygen, which means you end up with a fish kill or you know, whatever other organism may live in there that's breathing that dissolved oxygen. So it's kind of a balancing act right now, kind of waiting for the weather to change so we can open some gates and move some water. Remember, I'm holding back water so utilities can provide water. So we're spraying some areas that we can in small doses to avoid any kind of fish kills while waiting for this rain and to move some through. Now, if we get into a pattern of this where we have continual drought, we will start looking into some other options, which would be mechanical harvesting, they call it, where you can use equipment, get in there and pull that material out. The problem is you have to have lots of room. You can't transport those kind of, water lettuce is an invasive, so you have to dry it where you pull it out. So there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen to do that. The water control structures are great for holding back water and moving water when we need to. It makes it a little more difficult when you have something in the waterway that you need to get to and get out when you can't travel the entire waterway with a piece of equipment. So it requires owning properties and land so we can pull that stuff out. That's something that we'll be looking at if this pattern continues. But right now we're just hoping for a little bit more rain for a couple of different reasons, and one of the reasons is so I can push that material out. And if you've ever been on the downstream side of 101 and 106, which are the last two structures before it goes into the Myakkahatchee River, or Myakkahatchee Creek, you'll see that the manatees wait on the downstream side for that water lettuce and that water hyacinth to come over. So they want it as bad as we want to get rid of it. I just have to figure out a way to get it over the wall.
Okay, so we're over time, so I'm gonna take these last two questions.
Yeah, about that project on North Chamberlain. I just showed up there, are you gonna widen now Chamberlain? If that's happening, you can sell out soon, you know?
So while
7 building, right?
this question is about the development that is on North Chamberlain.
Yeah.
The gentleman feels that this kind of came out of the blue. This project has gone through many reviews and actually has been in the works and in the permitting process for years. As a project like that goes through a permitting process, it goes through many layers of review. It's called the Development Review Committee. So our transportation experts, our utilities experts, our fire and police staff will be looking at this project and what impacts it has to the community and determining what we call concurrency to make sure that this project, with the building of this project, we still are able to offer the services within our comp plan the way that we've designed those services. So you'll see at certain places where if we do see a large development come through, they'll be required to widen the road and add an extra lane or similar. You also asked about utilities, so they will bring utilities to these big projects and they will pass homes along the way, but this gives us a head start. This is the big infrastructure that later we can use as part of our master plan to make those connections throughout. So while the development is serving that development, it's giving us that baseline infrastructure to help get through those master plan stages.
Just one more question. I went to the meeting about data center. Is that happening on Yorkshire or something? Data center?
Data centers are a big part of the conversation right now, and we are hopeful that you will attend our September 3rd meeting at City Hall at 6 p.m. We are having experts from Florida Power and Light, Peace River, Minnesota Regional Water Supply, FDISA, which is a Florida nonprofit that is helping with this data center conversation. We are gathering information so that we can provide information and research and answer questions as we go.
September 3rd.
September 3rd at 6 o'clock at City Hall. It's in City Hall chambers.
Evacuation routes. You got every one of them under construction. River Road, Sumter, Toledo, and Price. How the hell we get out of here if we need to evacuate?
Sure. So there's lots of construction right now. Part of the part of the requirements in our contracts that we have with these companies is anytime there's a storm, they have to prepare for that storm, meaning they will clear all of their equipment, they will clear all of the road blockages. We will make sure if there's a pending storm, that all of those sites are clear and passable.
How come nobody's talking about the police department?
It's good. Second motorcycle.
And nice. The police department remains a need. Our police department is currently well beyond capacity. We are bringing in portables to try to help meet that need for a while, but as the city grows and we are looking to bring on patrol staff to keep our safe community a safe community, we are going to need to address this issue of space for the police department. We continue to look for funding opportunities, grants, opportunities for creative design of the police department. These conversations do continue, and you're welcome to join our budget process and our commission meetings for the discussions.
Thank you.
Great, well, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. I will be up front if you have questions that weren't answered. We're gonna take all the questions that were asked tonight and put it in a document that has all the questions and answers that we can then have on our website so that you can see it. Thank you.